what does the BA professional or business analyst, according to the BA BOK, mean? So it means that we as business analysts are supposed to look at different aspects of the problems, the solution domain, the different types of potential ways of working with the problem space and the solution space. So that would mean we need to cover the data aspect, we need to cover the business, the management of it, the strategic aspect of it, the system side, the technology, and then the product, looking at the whole thing, the whole of the life cycle as a product development. And then obviously we need to look at the requirements space as well, owning the requirements and being able to deliver the entire product and owning the product. So there are different titles to the BA professional, as we've seen before. We understood that. Some are called systems analysts, business analyst, business architect, data analyst, management consultant, business consultant, product manager, requirements engineer, requirements owner. Then you've got process analyst. You've got a whole lot of different titles and different profiles by which the business analysis professional is known. So all of these, business analyst, change analyst, business consultant, requirements engineer, systems analyst, IT analyst, domain expert, data analyst, process analyst, account manager, product owner, product consultant, business architect, product specialist, product manager, all of these, and many, many, many more. There are different avatars of the BA professional, and whatever name you call and whatever form and shape the specific role is, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that how we as the BA professionals take the ownership of the product or the process at hand, try and work with the stakeholders, help identify the problem, define the problem, specify the problems and opportunities, the assumptions, constraints, challenges, communicate them to the stakeholders, and then be able to actually facilitate the teams in trying to create, implement, develop, and deploy the solution. So that's the facilitation role on the solution side. Whereas on the problem side and the opportunities and all those, the problem domain is what we call. That's where we need to identify, prioritize, specify, communicate, and trace, and everything to do with the requirements in that space. That's where we pretty much operate in. That's the focus area. And then we need to slowly move into the solution space where we enable the teams, where we facilitate them, support them in identifying and in recommending the best solution, and in implementing the solution, developing it, test it, and then deploy it, and then finally be able to deliver the solution to the stakeholders, the customers, and the end users. So that's pretty much what a BA should be doing, irrespective of how many ever names and forms and shapes and sizes and different titles that you have. So a business analysis professional is anyone who carries out business analysis tasks regardless of job title or role. I mean, this is what we've discussed this in detail. This is just easier said than done. So we went ahead and we kind of elucidated, we elaborated further on what does this business analysis task really mean. It means that all the knowledge areas, all the tasks, activities, the deliverables, the inputs, the outcomes and outputs that we discussed in the last few sessions, those would pretty much constitute what is the focus area, what is the set of the remit and the scope of the business analysis professional. So we're required to analyze information from multiple sources with an organization, which means that we need to look at the source of the specific data. Where is it coming from? Where it can go to? How would we gather the sources? What kind of information would come through? How can we analyze that information? What can we gather and derive from that? What are the kind of insights and analytics we can deduce from there? And how can we use all these insights and analytics to help achieve our objective of identifying the right solution that fits in with the problem space, right? So that's the outlook that we should all have as BAs. So in terms of The overall set of activities, we did discuss this, so I'll just go through that one by one, just so that we cover that. So it's all about understanding the organizational problems or goals, not just the organizational ones, but also the stakeholders within the organization. Each set of stakeholders could have different set of problems, goals, challenges, pain areas, and the requirements and expectations. So we would need to understand each of those and then be able to specify them in very clear terms. And from there, from these, we start deriving the needs, the goals, the requirements, and potentially from there, we would move on into the identification and perhaps even specification and recommendation of the solutions that would help address these problems, the goals, and the needs, right? So this is the engine that drives the whole vehicle. We can't have the solution coming first and then the needs coming later. So you can't retrofit, you can't force fit a solution to a problem. A problem always precedes the solution. Who are you trying to help? Whose problem are you trying to solve? What problems are you trying to solve? So those questions are the ones that need to be on the top of the mind of a BA. So strategy, guidance, very important. You need to be able to identify the right approach, the set of methods, the techniques, the tools that we're going to deploy, and the resources. All of these, we need to have a game plan in terms of how we're going to, come up with the solution, how we're going to implement the solution. That is all about the strategy, guidance, strategy, implementation, and strategic analysis. All of that need to be done in conjunction with this problem and the solution, bridging. And enabling the change is another thing so that sense of the change approach and the strategy for us to bridge the gap between the problem and the solution is what we would need to do as BAs. And that's the facilitation, enabling that sense of development, empowering the team with the right information, with the right tools, working with them, identification of defects, identification of the gaps, if there are any, how can we bridge those gaps between the problem and the solution, the as is and the to be, between the problem and the solution, between the stakeholders' needs and the solution that has been recommended. All of these different gaps need to be identified all the way through continuously, and then we need to try and bridge those. Aiding in stakeholder collaboration, work with the stakeholders, internal as well as external, to be able to enable this change to happen across the organization, and perhaps even sometimes working with the external stakeholders and making it happen. So that's pretty much what we as business analysis professionals are expected to do. And these are the kind of core activities. And this analogy of this is what I would always try and give to the people. We are like the Swiss Army knife. We are the Victorinox of the products. So you should be able to actually play different different roles and different avatars depending on the need, depending on how you are and where you are, which life cycle stage you are operating in. So if you're in the early stage, you're trying to look at elicitation, looking at working with the stakeholders, identifying the vision, and then the elicitation exercises, the conducting the interviews, the workshops. So all of that would happen. So it's all about there you're trying to act as more like a detective, more like an explorer, trying to uncover, unearth, and unravel all the mysteries and unravel the things that are not being told explicitly. And then once that phase is done, if you have got an idea, you've got a roadmap, and then you start with the requirements, there you're actually trying to be with the precision of a surgeon. You're trying to actually write the requirements in a way that are watertight, that are really in a position everybody is able to understand it clearly. And then it's the requirements, it's the precision and the accuracy of a surgeon there. And once you've got the wireframe stage, once you've finished that requirements, when you're creating the wireframes, the sketches, the prototypes, and the mock-ups and the mind maps and everything else to actually kind of create some kind of a pictures out of the requirements, because they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. You then need to be donning the role of a painter, of an artist, to actually bring out the creativity, bring out the functional aspects of all those different requirements. And once that is there, you should actually try and break the whole thing, working with the testers, try and look at like a sledgehammer, you're trying to break the whole system and identifying the loopholes, identifying what are the cracks that could potentially happen, how can users use this product in a way that they can fail, what are the failure scenarios, what are the error paths, what are the ways that could fail the product, which is not otherwise very robust product or a platform. So again, that's where you need to have a different role of a critical, of a sledgehammer wielding villain, right? So different paths and different ways. That's where they say, I would say it's like a tailor, tinker, soldier, spy. That's like that movie. We need to have different roles, like that of an architect, that of a soldier, that of a fighter pilot, jet, a pilot. Different roles and different situations and different stages of the life cycle. We need to play as BAs depending on the context, depending on the need of the hour, depending on the stakeholders that we're working with. We need to be able to switch the gear and get into that role easily. And that's why I would equate the role of a BA to that of a Victorinox. So in terms of this, again, let's talk about the specific aspect of the 6 knowledge areas that the BA book again says. In fact, as I said, this should actually be the first module that should have been covered. And then it's like an introduction to all the 6 knowledge areas that we have actually already covered. But I would just go through that just so that we already covered each of these 6 knowledge areas in detail, but then for the sake of completion. So the first one is the business analysis, planning and monitoring, just as a kind of a revision for you. It refers to the tasks performed to coordinate, bring together, organize the stakeholders and the BA professionals. So basically it's all about how you can structure your BA activities, what kind of tools you would use, what are the kind of activities, the tasks involved, the stakeholders, how are you going to engage with them, what's your plan, how are you going to prepare for that. So it's essentially the sense of preparation and planning, and it continues one. It's not just done first and left off there, but it's a continuous set of activities. The second one is the elicitation collaboration. So it is about trying to meet with the stakeholders, understand what kind of information, what kind of needs they have, what are the goals, how can we try and elicit them. So when we talk about elicitation, it's about not just collecting the data that is being told explicitly, but also the ones that are not told, that are not said explicitly, the implicit. That's where you talk about the exploration. That's where trying to dive deep into their hearts and minds and understand what is it that is really at the core of their work, their life. How are they going to perform this, their workflow? What are the possible breakdown scenarios? What are the tools they would use? What are the knowledge areas that they're interested in? What are the level of technology awareness? What are the applications they would use? All this collective knowledge of things which are not told by asking is again part of the elicitation. And once you gather all this rich data, then you can try and confirm this with the stakeholders. And that's what we call as results confirmation. And once the confirmation is done, you would like to communicate the results, the findings and the insights, again, back to the stakeholders, either internal or external. And that's what is done by several documents or different presentation sessions and everything else. So that's what we discussed in the elicitation collaboration knowledge area. The requirements lifecycle management is about the actions performed by professionals. So essentially, we're talking about the entire lifecycle management of the requirements, right from the source of the requirement. Sometimes it could come in the form of a defect logged in by a customer, or it could be coming in from the senior management or the feature of a product. It could be anything. That could be the source, and that can trigger the generation of or a creation of a requirement in the system. And from there, how that requirement could get converted and transformed into the architecture block, the design, high-level design, low-level design, then into the development, finally the testing. All of this, the entire transformation of the requirement into the test case and then the final build of the product is what needs to be maintained and traced. And that's what we do in the context of requirements lifecycle management. So we have a continuous monitoring, continuous tracking and tracing the requirement up and down, just so that it's important. We know where and how we can effect any change and what is the potential impact of that change that is proposed, and then take some informed decision about that, the go or no go decision to implement that change in the requirement as well as in the product development. So very important again. And then obviously strategy analysis, it's always, as I say, the like quality starts from the top. So also if you want to really implement anything of like innovation or creativity, it starts at the top. So you need to really trace it back all the way to the vision, the mission of the organization, and what are the tactical and the operational goals, what are the strategies that they have in front of them, and how do they go about implementing these. That's what is really important. So that's what we do with the strategy analysis. So it's really important to understand this, because this would set in motion pretty much the rest of the approaches and what we are doing as at the product level or operational level. And again, that's what is important, to connect the higher bits, the top bits, with what is happening on the ground, the bottom bits. Again, the traceability is key here as well. And then the requirements analysis and design definition is basically, again, we are trying to analyze the requirements. That's where we validate them, we verify them, we make sure that we have got a good requirement captured, specified, and communicated across. And then once that is done, we will help move on into the solution space, which is the next one, solution evaluation, which is into trying to create or even identify at this stage some of the multiple options that are possible for us. Sometimes it could be simple as buy or build. Sometimes it could be like you've got 4 or 5 different vendors to choose from. But irrespective of this, you need to really be able to define the options, and then from there evaluate the options, considering, comparing and contrasting all these different options, and then being able to decide and select the one option or one solution that would help achieve the solution scope, and also bridge the gap between the as is situation, which is the current state, and the proposed the solution state in terms of the to be situation. And in doing so, you need to understand what are all the potential blockages, what are all the different problems, the issues, the challenges, the pain areas that come through, and how can we as BAs and the team try and remove those so that we can deliver the potential value that we have set out for in the solutions.